Hello, welcome, welcome. Oh my gosh, it has been a while. It's been a hot minute. How are you, Brian?
Hey Lauren, it's good to see you. I'm doing great. I'm doing great. I'm glad we're getting to do another show today.
I know, I know. A little bit last minute. Usually we like to give you guys a little bit more time. So we'll just be sure to share the clips afterwards and share the link afterwards because I do think this is a good one. Um, Time just escaped us and we realized next week is Thanksgiving, and that would not be a good time to talk about one of the most important topics of the year going into 2026, employee advocacy. So we don't mean employee advocacy like, we're getting out in front of the supermarkets and advocating for employees. That is super important. But we are talking about online employee advocacy. And this is such a hot topic, especially on our favorite platform, LinkedIn, but generally in the social media realm. So right after this live finishes, we have a blog that's dropping about advocacy, and I'm super excited because I did work really hard at putting it together. But we thought before the blog drops, we would just give you guys a little insight into what we were talking about and why it's supposed to be so important in 2026. So let's start off by explaining what is employee advocacy. So if it's not people striking in the streets, what exactly is it? So, Brian, when you hear the word employee advocacy in terms of social media, what do you think of?
Okay, well, unfortunately, the thing I think of first is really just a tiny piece of the puzzle, and that is employees sharing their company's content. And yes, that is a piece of what we're talking about, but there really is a lot more to employee advocacy than just like taking your company's blog post from that month and sharing it on your social. But that's maybe your kind of your entry point into employee advocacy.
Yeah.
But I think we could come up with a better definition than that entails a lot more of what it really is.
Yeah. So I think at the end of the day, it's really a strategy. And it's like a lot of marketing these days that's harnessing the power of user generated content. If you think about any social media feed that you've seen in the last decade, there is so much user generated content, meaning that the customer or the client is selling the product for you. So that is called brand advocacy. We're talking about employee advocacy because the user is the employee. So it's similar, and it does get a little bit sticky with brand advocacy and um, you know, employer advocacy. But I think the thing to remember with employee advocacy, is that it's really a strategy to harness the power of the people behind the brand. So yes, as we always say, people buy from people, and that is ultimately, what this is rooted in. But it's more than just using your clients or your happy advocates or your ambassadors to sell your product. It's using the culture of your company to showcase what it's like to work with you, what it's like to work for you, what it's like to be part of your team. I think that's why Brian is saying that, employees resharing is one piece of it, because it is much more of a strategy. And then in today's world, the last several years, we've really incorporated the thought leadership component into that strategy. So that's kind of the piece de resistance these days with employer advocacy. And I'm just going to keep calling it employer advocacy because my brain thinks it's the same word apparently. So bear with me, folks. Um, but that's ultimately, why we like talking about employee advocacy, because it really loops in this concept of thought leadership and highlighting the expertise of your employees. So not just, showcasing them on LinkedIn as like, employee of the month or, highlighting different employees. It's taking their expertise in the form of a blog or a post and using that to showcase them as the expert behind your business. So it goes beyond just people like doing business with people. People like doing business with experts. And no longer is that corporate kind of talk, that's really sales heavily driven, going to win people over. It's hearing from the experts behind the business. So is that kind of what you think of too, Brian?
Absolutely is. And that kind of brings us to why this is so important going into 2026. And that is the dirty little secret of the LinkedIn company page, which is probably not going to be your best performing marketing asset because of the LinkedIn algorithm. And I know you're a deep expert on this topic, Lauren, so I'll let you speak to it a bit more than
I
me.
know.
But it's been the dirty little secret for a little while now that the company page just does not get anywhere near the kind of reach or engagement that your personal pages are going to get, and that is a big part of the reason this is so important.
Yeah, and I'm going to read you guys a stat that you're going to cry. So, company page visibility now accounts for just 1.6 of all organic impressions on LinkedIn. That
1.6.
1.6, that is not a lot, especially if you have if you're not following a lot of people. And then the other joining stat is that posts reshared or originated by employees drive 4.3 more engagement than corporate posts. And that is from the October update of the Algorithm Insights report from Richard Vanderblom. So that was super shocking for me to see. And actually, the initial report came out in April, and it was still low, but then just seeing that kind of confirmed and went even lower recently when the October update came out. It's shocking, but it's also not shocking. So I think all that tells me is that people want to buy from people, and people are no longer taking that kind of corporate marketing speak and taking it as gospel. People want to hear from the actual experts. And if you think about it, when you're posting on a corporate page, the message is very informational and educational, and it's really kind of limited spin or opinion because it's corporate. But when you hear from an expert, this is an opportunity to kind of hear their unique spin on things, their opinions. And the reality is, these days, we are not just corporate robots. I mean, thank God. So people recognize that they're doing business with people with opinions and expertise that may vary along the gamut of experiences in the corporate world, and they want to hear about that. And I think that is ultimately what differentiates this employee content from corporate content, is that unique experiential spin. Um, so as sad as it is about the corporate content, it does not mean that corporate pages are dead per se. It just means that they need to incorporate this employee advocacy strategy.
Yeah, you might almost want to think about your corporate page as maybe your hub on LinkedIn, but like your employee advocates are where you're really going to get your message out through reach, through engagement, through thought, leadership. It's also a real chance for your employees, your experts, to really show their deep expertise in their particular areas, which may not, which may allow you to dive in deeper and show off different sides of your company that you're not necessarily showing on your main page.
Exactly. And you have to remember that people actually do really like that. I think sometimes corporations are a little hesitant to show the human side, but these days, being authentic, being human really is what's selling. And I hate to say it, but that is kind of where kind of cancel culture has come in a little too extreme sometimes, is because we do have humans behind the brand. So, I bring that up because it is important to remember to set parameters. So I think that is the key to all of this, is you really not only need to have a strategy, but you have to have SOPs in place, because you don't want to get into a situation with cancel culture, unless of course that's your brand. Some people do like that. But I think in order to avoid that, to touch that line of being human and authentic, but not crossing the line into offensive or outrageous, you need to have some SOPs. And I want to be clear too that, sometimes what people see as offensive is just your brand, and that's fine. And those people are going to cancel you, and those people are going to leave nasty comments or whatever. I don't think as much on LinkedIn, but if Instagram or Facebook is your platform of choice, I think it is just recognizing that you are going to have haters, but you're not doing it right if you don't have haters. But it is, on the whole, it is important to have SOPs in place to define, what are our employees okay to say with us tagged, where do we, want to separate it. So it's about creating a strategy for the company and the employees, and not just letting people go kind of off on their own, right?
Yeah, actually, I'd love for you, Lauren, if you could, to talk a little bit about more what a program like this actually looks in practice. And I think some people might worry, oh my God, I need another expensive, employee advocacy platform that to manage all of this, and it's going to cost
Yeah.
me an arm and a leg, and but it's really not necessary at all. It may be helpful sometimes to have technology to support this, but you really can just put some procedures and like you said, SOPs in place to help structure your program. So I'd love for you to talk a little bit more about the nuts and bolts of that, if you could.
Yeah, absolutely. So in the blog, you guys will see that we have outlined kind of easy framework, but just to kind of give you the overview, I think the most important thing you can do before you start this type of program is identify your objectives. Why are you doing this? What is the purpose? What are your goals? And what are the expectations? I think with anything with social media and digital marketing, it's setting expectations that are clear, defined, specific, and really are reasonable. I think in the beginning, you can set the bar fairly low if you've never done it, because you don't want your people to feel burned out or frustrated. Where this is a group mentality, you want to set expectations that people feel like they can reach, because you don't want people to be doing, partaking in the program and then feel like, oh God, we didn't hit our goals. I don't want to do it anymore. So I think setting those goals and objectives very clearly within rational expectations is the first step. And I think, what, I want to backtrack even before that. You need to do some competitive research. That's, kind of how I start anything in this world. And of course, this is a great use of AI tools, is to find people in your companies, in your realm, in your sector, and see what they're doing, because there are many different types of employee advocacy strategies. Of course, the goal is always the same, to showcase the people behind the business. But for some companies, the goal is recruitment. For other companies, it is thought leadership more so. So really identifying what people in your industry are doing, what are your competitors focusing on, what's working, as a viewer, and then kind of set your objectives and goals from there. And then, of course, even if you do have the bar fairly low just to get yourself off the ground, you still want to have KPIs. You still want to be monitoring those key performance indicators, reach, engagement, conversions, all the things that you would already track through a digital marketing program. You just want to make sure that you're tracking it as part of this strategy too. Uh, and then I think the next step beyond that is creating a training program. So once you kind of have all this in place, you've done your competitive research, you have your sense of what you're going to do, you have your KPIs in mind, and maybe you've identified a few people in a beta program that can launch. Maybe there are already people that are doing all these things. You just need to formalize it. It's about bringing those people in and creating a training program. And, if it was me, I would probably have like a basic training program, but then work with this kind of beta team to really identify what are the things that they think their colleagues would need in order to make this successful, because they know their colleagues best. So creating that training program, and I would have the beta team work on, execute the program, the training program, and the actual engaging for a couple months, and then have them come back and realign and figure out, what needs to be addressed. How can we make this more successful? Because, some of these people may be super interested in helping, but have no idea how to do it. So you can't go in thinking that everyone is going to be a Lauren Perna or Brian Reiser knowing all about social media. You have to go in thinking that they know nothing. So having those people that are already your best ambassadors is going to be great. That's the first step. And then once you've kind of ironed out the details and gone through a few beta rounds, then it's time to onboard other employees. And I think one thing is, is there a reward system? In our research for writing the blog, we found examples of companies that gamify employee engagement. So it is, really think, how can you get people involved in a way that they feel good about and it doesn't feel like one more thing? Brian, what would you add to that framework?
Yeah, I would just say that I love you pointing out the idea of kind of starting with a beta program, because I think for a lot of people this whole concept can feel very overwhelming, especially if you're a larger company and you start getting into tens, dozens, or hundreds of employees, and all of a sudden you're trying to launch this massive program. And I think starting small, starting with people that are already doing this in a way, championing your business, kind of acting as thought leaders, the people that are your best storytellers, and just kind of launching a pilot program with them is a real way to kind of start dipping your toes into the water of this without biting off more than you can chew. And then as you learn, and you will learn as you go, what works, what doesn't work, how to measure, what not to measure, then you can start scaling it out, company wide. And I think it makes it a lot more manageable and less
Yeah,
scary.
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Um, and so I think maybe what we can talk about now is, so why? Of course, why? Because this is how marketing is going, but what are the benefits? You're hearing all this and you're like, all right, sounds great. Why, what are the benefits for employees? What are the benefits for us as a company besides just kind of keeping up with marketing? I know my clientele, and I think a lot of the feedback I would probably hear is things like, it feels like one more thing. So Brian, tell me from your perspective, why do you think a company should add this to their strategy, their marketing communication strategy, and why is it not just one more thing?
Yeah, okay. So great question. And there are several reasons why I would say this isn't just one more thing to add, like for the sake of doing something. Like you really need to be doing this for your marketing efforts. And so one of those reasons, again, is just the massive expansion of the reach of your organic social media. Like again, as you
Yeah.
said, if only 1.2 or 1.6% of, of organic hits are coming from people who are seeing the company page, you want to massively get beyond that. And the best way to do that is by employing an advocacy program like this. Another a fun fact is that employees have 10 times more connections on average than a company has followers. So you're
It's
really
amazing.
expanding your reach well beyond what the company would be able to do on its own without racking up a massive ad spend. Um,
Yeah.
yeah. Another reason, again, it's a way to kind of build your own company's credibility and authority for your
Yeah. That's a good
experts.
point.
And that is so important everywhere these days. It's important in, I focus on SEO and AI, and it's important in that world, building trust, building credibility, building authority. But it's equally important just for your customers, your clients,
Yeah.
the end users. They want to know that the people that work for your company know what they're talking about and can speak to the issues they care about. So that's really important too.
Yeah, yeah. And so those are awesome points. And I think now, before we wrap it up, why is this important for employees? Why would employees want this? Well, first of all, you know, employees, when people are looking for jobs, where's the first place they go?
Yeah.
LinkedIn, Indeed. They are looking to see what other employees are like at your company. And when you have a strong employee advocacy program, you're showcasing that you are a great place to work, that you have the company culture that they're looking for, or alternatively, or not looking for. It's a great way to weed out candidates that may not be a good fit, or vice versa, or reel in candidates that would be a good fit that might not otherwise be interested in your company because they aren't familiar with the culture. But this way, with employee advocacy, they are seeing what it's like to work for you, to work with you. They're seeing who their employees are. So I think, on a purely basic like recruitment level, it's super important for employees. But also these days, every employee is trying to build their personal brand.
Yeah.
That's the reality. And if you are an employee that's not trying to build your personal brand, like that's okay. But we're talking in majorities here, where I think the future of career development and recruiting is all going to be based on people having these full picture personal brands, whereas before it was like, all right, I have this XYZ experience, but now I'm showcasing myself as a whole human, because guess what, I am a whole human. But by giving them agency to post on behalf of you, or with you, or in collaboration with you, that's huge. They're building that personal brand in a way that they have the structure and the training. For a lot of people, are just kind of winging it. So if you are giving them that structure, not only are you showcasing that you care about their growth, but you're helping build a personal brand for them. And that's huge in today's world. So I think it's a little bit of, for the company, it's good for the company, good for the employee, and altogether it just builds a stronger culture. But of course, we would be remiss if we didn't talk about the most important point that everyone's wondering, is that there is data, a lot of data, showing that employee advocacy is a financial decision. Companies with an active employee advocacy program, in one report, showed 20% higher revenue. Of course, that's just one report that we found, but honestly, I think it is telling that when you have the right program in place, and you are setting clear expectations, you do have a training program, you do have people that are deeply engaged, it works.
Yeah, and it comes back to your quote from before: people buy from people. And so people want to buy from, not faceless companies, but experts that they're familiar with, that they trust, that they believe in. And so it makes a lot of sense that if you can get your employees, at becoming thought leaders, advocating on your behalf, demonstrating their expertise, that your revenue would go up over time. So it absolutely, again, is not just another thing on your checklist to do. There are real financial incentives to be doing this in 2026.
Yeah, absolutely. So that brings us at 25 minutes, and I'm trying to keep them tight these days because I know not everybody has a lot of time. But I think that, we covered a lot. Everything else that we didn't cover is in the blog, and the blog goes into this a little bit more in detail.
Yeah.
But we'd love to hear from you because I firmly believe that this is going to be such a big thing in 2026. And we'd love to hear from you. What else can we answer in future lives about employee advocacy? How can we help you launch these programs for yourself through these lives? And, as a communications partner and digital marketing partner, let us know, because I personally find this very fascinating. So we'd love to hear from you guys. But I hope that was helpful, and we will see you in a few weeks when we are going to dive even more into what 2026 looks like.
Love it. Thanks so much for
All
today,
right.
Lauren.
Bye.